Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, and the new set Celestial Storm is right around the corner. So what kind of a Pokemon-centered YouTube channel would I be running if I did not bring you a buy list for this particular set? Now, general rules of my buy list are as follows. These are the cards I think you need to have in your binder in order to be able to make essentially any deck that you like. If it's a card which is really its own deck, think stuff like Donphan and Metagross, I'm not saying don't buy them, I'm saying buy them if you're into them. And similarly, GX cards tend to be more expensive, so with GX cards, unless I really point out, I think they're only worth buying if you really like the look of them. So we really are looking at cards where you need a copy or two in your binder because they might end up jumped into essentially a whole bunch of decks. So starting off then, I think you need 1 or 2 copies of Masquerain. For just 1 grass energy, you can discard all special energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. It is a good tech that you might want to chuck into a deck. You need Former Cargo. It's a reprint of the old one that lets you search your deck for any card and put it on top of your deck, and then as long as you can draw the card, you're searching for anything. And it combos really nicely with Macargo GX that lets you discard the top card of your deck, and if it's a basic energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. It's not out yet, but it will be in the near future. You've got to have 4 of these. I think you should grab yourself 4 Wailord because it's absolutely huge. It's the biggest non-GX we've got, and it's really nice in terms of a stall deck. Obviously, if you're getting evolutions, you need the pre-evolutions as well. I think you need a couple of Regice because it works as Stadium Lock. Maybe you'll use it in a hidden run deck, maybe you won't, but you need a couple of Regice because it's the kind of thing you might chuck into your deck. Similarly with Kyogre for just a counter energy, or a water colorless, bearing in mind in a water deck you're always going to have Aqua Patch, or the access to it. It does 30 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. Yeah, you could argue it's just a worse Latios, but it's got more HP than Latios, and it can hit 2 of the bench, and it can use Aqua Patch so it doesn't rely on double colorless energy. I like it. I think you need 2 Electro GX. Even though it's a GX, you can knock it out and attach 5 energy cards, not just basic energy, to your Pokemon from your discard pile in any way that you like, as long as they're non-EX, non-GX. This is going to have some dumb combos made around it, and I think you need a couple for when you want those dumb combos. You need Form and Nectric because you can play it down on turn 1 as long as you're going second, and you can play it in the active or you can play it on the bench. This is a great starting Pokemon. Plus, for 1 energy, you do some damage and attach 2 basic energy from your hand to any of your Pokemon. It's pretty gosh darn good. I think you need 4 Plusle and 4 Minun because they actually work quite nicely as extra draw power that you might want to put into your deck. Plusle lets you shuffle your hand into your deck and draw a card for each bench Pokemon in play, yours and your opponent's. Minun lets you discard as many cards in your hand as you like, and then draw till you got 5 in your hand. There are still some translations of this saying that it's only discard 1 card from your hand. It is as many as you like, which is a lot better. I don't know these are going to go in every deck, but they're going to be cheap and they could be nice draw power. I think you need 4 of the Pom Pom or Oricorio because it does 30 to each EX and GX in play for 1 basic energy. It is to yours and your opponent, so you need to be a little careful, but that is some good spread for 1 energy on a basic Pokemon. You need a couple of the Attack Deoxys. I mean, look, it's Mewtwo from Evolutions, but a different card. It's got the same attack. It's just Deoxys rather than Mewtwo. It's going to see play as a Buzzwole counter, so you need a couple copies in your binder. It's for double colorless energy, and it counts as one of the best Pokemon in the format. You should have a couple copies of Mewtwo in your binder at the moment. Take them out and pop Deoxys in instead. You need 2 copies of Regirock, because in the expanded format, if you don't play expanded, you might be able to ignore this, although it's still good. It does 20 damage, 40 if you've got a tool attached, 60 if it's a strong energy, 80 if there's a Diancie Prism Star on your side of the field, and 110 for a Choice Band. To put it another way, if you've got a Diancie out, which with Brooklet Hill you probably should, and a strong energy Choice Band, which you often will, it's not the most difficult combo ever, you are getting a one-hit KO on a Zoroark for a single energy on a basic Pokemon. It is the best fighting type Zoroark counter in Expanded, because Buzzwole needs its once per game beast energy in order to get a one-hit KO for a single energy. It's great, you need a couple copies sitting around. You also need 4 copies of Sneasel. It's going to be cheap, you can use it for a counter energy or put it in a darkness deck, but you flip a coin for each Pokemon you have in play, it does 30 damage times the number of heads. If you can hit enough heads, this will be great. There is definitely a rogue deck here. You need 2 copies of the new Sableye for the ability. Once during your turn, you can look at the top card of your deck and you can either discard it, or you can put it back. You can discard the top card of your deck. This is going to be useful in a whole bunch of decks. I should mention at this point, I've done a video about all of these cards. I will pop a whole bunch of links in the description so you can go and check them out. You need 1 copy of Jirachi Prism Star. I mean, generally you should try and have 1 copy of each Prism Star, but Jirachi says that if you take it as a face down prize card, so you cannot cheat and use a card that lets you see your prize cards, then you can pop it on your bench and take a prize. That's a little bit silly. Plus, for free energy, you get a KO at the end of your opponent's next turn, if they don't get out the active. Honestly, I quite like Jirachi Prism Star, although a lot of people disagree with me. You need 1 copy of Celesteela, because if there are 6 total prize cards remaining between you and your opponent, you do 160 damage for a single metal energy. That is crazy good. And I think you need 4 copies of Kartana. Now, some people will disagree with this, and that's absolutely fine. But for 2 energy, bearing in mind you can use stuff like Max Elixir pre-rotation or in Expanded, and if you get 2 energy on there and your opponent's got 6 prize cards remaining, you're doing 130 potentially on turn 1. Actually scrap it, get 1 or 2 copies of this because you don't want to play 4 of, you just want to search it out early. I've changed my mind. You need 4 Stakataka GX, and yes, I know it's a GX, and I only put these on my buy list if I really think you need copies of them. But the fact is, it reduces damage done to your Ultra Beast by 10. Which means any Ultra Beast focus deck you play in the future, you may well end up playing this. Fine, Buzzwole decks are probably going to ignore it, but Naganadel looks like it's going to be good with this. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I do think you need 4 copies of Stakataka, and I know that's a pain because it's a GX and it's not going to be that cheap, so you can put it off if you like, but I do think it's a kind of card that you do need to have in your binder. My apologies. You need 1 copy of Salamence because if it's in the active, it's basically a free gusting effect. You can just drag a Pokemon active. Now, with Floatstone rotating, it's not going to be anywhere near as good, but we are getting Lance Prism Star in Dragon Majesty, which, if you had a Pokemon KO'd the previous turn, you can put 2 Dragon Pokemon from your deck onto your bench, even if they're not a basic. So I think you need a copy of Salamence to chuck in a deck if you're playing Lance Prism Star. You need 1 copy of Latias Prism Star. It's a ridiculous Pokemon that for 1 colourless energy does 30 damage and attaches 1 basic energy from your discard to each of your benched basic Dragon Pokemon. Amazing in any basic Dragon deck, like Rayquaza. And you need 1 copy of Latios Prism Star, which does 50 damage for a double colourless energy for each of your evolved Dragon Pokemon, which is great in any evolved Dragon deck. We don't actually have one of those at the moment, although I still hold out hope for Dragonite, but if we ever do have one, Latios Prism Star is going to be so good that you cannot not put a copy into your deck. You will also be needing 4 copies of Dunsparce. It's like a reprint of the old one. You get to go and search your deck for free basic Pokemon, put them onto your bench, and then you get to switch, leaving whatever Pokemon you like in the active. It's not going to be for every deck, but it's a good Pokemon to chuck out at the start of the game, and I think you need 4 copies for if you want to play it. And you need 2 copies of Kecleon, because if you're playing the correct unit energy, that being the Lightning Psychic Metal, it's just great. It becomes all 3 of those types while being able to do 80 damage for free energy. Certainly in Malamar decks that are playing this unit energy, and some of them are, it seems like a no-brainer to me. It's great. It's 3 different types. Now, in terms of trainer cards, my general rule is to just buy 4 of all of them, but there are a few exceptions. So you need 4 Acrobike if you haven't already, because, well, draw 1 card from the top of your deck and discard 1, it's really, really good. You need 4 copies of Apricorn Maker, which puts 2 Pokeballs in your hand. You never know when this is going to become good, so get a playset while they're cheap. 4 copies of Beast Ball. I mean, look, it searches your prizes for Ultra Beast rather than your deck, but you might use it in some Ultra Beast decks. 4 copies, I think you're going to need them. 4 copies of Copycat, if you don't already have them, which you may. It's been printed a couple times before. It's going to be one of the best draw cards we've got. Post-rotation, shuffle your hand into your deck, draw a number of cards equal to your opponent. Yeah, your opponent can hurt you by keeping a low hand size, but I still think you need it. 4 copies of Energy Recycle System. It's Rescue Stretcher for basic energy. And you know what? We're losing Super Odd. You're going to need this. You probably won't ever play 4 copies of it. Maybe you only need a couple, but I'd get 4 just in case. 4 copies of Fisherman if you don't already have it, which you may well because it's been printed a few times before. 4 copies of Hustle Belt. Look, Hustle Belt, and actually 4 copies of Last Chance Potion as well here. We might as well while we're talking about it. You know, both of these cards involve having 30 or less HP remaining. Hustle Belt then means you do a whole bunch of extra damage, and Last Chance Potion means that you heal a whole bunch of extra damage. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? You might end up using them. You may not, but you need 4 copies because you might pop it in a deck. I think you probably only need 1 to 2 copies of Lizia. It searches out 2 Prism Star cards, but especially in a deck like Buzzwole, where turn 1 you may want your Beast Energy and Diancie Prism Star, and you can search it out with Tapu Lele. I really do think it is a card that you are going to want to have. Ergo, 1 or 2 copies seems right. 4 copies of Pokénav, 4 copies of Rainbow Brush. They're not the best item cards ever, but you may end up wanting to use them, so have 4 copies of each. 4 copies of Shrine of Punishment. This is a great card that puts 1 damage counter on each Pokemon EX and GX between turns. In a non-EX, non-GX deck, it's great, but even in a GX deck, it might help you hit the numbers. You need 4 copies. You also need 4 copies of Sky Pillar. Sky Pillar just prevents damage done to bench Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon. It's pretty good against a whole bunch of stuff. You need 4 copies. Steven's Resolve, I think you need 4 copies in case you play a Metagross deck or some other deck. Generally you only need 1 or 2, but being able to search for any free cards is amazing. Even though it ends your turn, I still don't particularly care. It's that gosh darned good. And then 4 copies of Tate and Liza. It's not the best draw card ever. It's basically you can either have a Shauna or a Switch. And getting 4 cards from your draw supporter for the turn is not particularly great. But we're moving into a post-rotation format where we only really have Cynthia. So stuff like Copycat and Tate and Liza are going to be much better than they should be, because we don't have any better options. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your buy list from Celestial Storm. It's all up on the screen right now. If there's other cards you like the look of and you want to play decks featuring, go and get them. But as it stands, these are the cards that I intend to stash away in my binder. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm playing a metal deck and I haven't got a copy of Celesteela to pop in. Or where I'm playing a spread deck and I'm playing Lightning Energy and I don't have an Oricorio to chuck in to do a bunch of extra damage. I want to have all of these cards ready. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my buy list. But let me know in the comments section, which cards are you most looking forward to? Are there any cards that you think I should have put on this list but haven't? Go nuts, ladies and gentlemen, but be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.